Turn up the volume, man. Welcome to the scene where we talking about the streets and what's in between. Race, politics, the culture, and
Have you ever had a time in your life where you felt stuck? Or when you look at yourself in the mirror, you just don't recognize who you are? Or you're on a pathway that you never thought that you would be on? In today's episode, we are going to talk about reinventing yourself and some of the steps that you can take in order to have a new you. I'm Eileen, entrepreneur and realtor.
I'm Ellen, attorney, professor, and writer.
And I'm Eileen, an HR professional, entrepreneur, and artist.
And this is A World Between.
turn up the volume, man. Welcome to the scene where we talking about the streets and what's in between. Race, politics, the culture, and community. A world divided, but this positive.
So, Eileen, you made a really good point. I know for me, I have reinvented myself many, many times. However, there's a special one that stands out for me. I'll never forget this day. It was in 2017. I worked at this non-for-profit, and let me just say, I had worked my way up to be the VP of HR. And I gave 120% to this job. I used to brag about going in at 3 o'clock in the morning. That's how dedicated I was. But then, my friend and I recalculate how much, how many hours I worked and how much I really got paid was like $7 an hour. But anyway, they let me go one of the days I went in at 3 o'clock. And
Oh, no.
I remember sitting in the car thinking, what am I going to do? And I realized at that moment, I never want to give a job that much time and commitment and ever again. So I started my company, Veer Up. And the one thing I realized is that I am good at helping people with navigating crises, at work or trying to find a job. And so that's how I started my company. So yeah, reinventing yourself is something that you can do over and over. So
Can
Yeah.
I just add, when she was talking about that, I know she was flexing on going on a job at 3 in the morning. I go, that is not a flex. I'm like, that's nothing to brag about. That is not good. So
No, it definitely isn't. And I've been there, and I've had those situations. But for me, I was recently I'll talk about the first time that I felt like I needed to reinvent myself. I had just gotten a divorce, my first divorce, and I moved to Dallas, and I realized that it was difficult for me to look at myself in the mirror.
mm,
And I went and took this chair dance class, and there was one session where she was like, you have to look at yourself in the mirror and make love to yourself in the mirror. And besides the fact that I was kind of weirded out, I just realized that, what she was asking me to do was to actually see myself. And that's when I realized I can't even look at myself in the mirror, and that was a hard pill to swallow. And at that moment in time, I realized that, I couldn't, like Eileen said, couldn't allow anybody to have that much control over me. But more importantly, I was not going to be an accessory to my own demise. And
mm,
so I decided to do things differently and to get, a certain level of healing so that I could move on and be the person who I thought I was going to be when I was 17 years old, writing out my plan for who I was going to be, which, by the way, I never became that person, but at least I'm closer.
but you're making your way to that
right.
person.
And
Yes.
it's still a
It's
journey.
important.
Like as long as you have breath in, you can. I would say I was thinking back. I think we talk about this. I probably will in future podcasts, but it was after my mom passed. Most people don't know that Nikita and I actually did not work in our field. It was just difficult to do the things that we were doing professionally and care for our mom at home. So I got a job that had nothing to do with anything that I went to school for. It was a job to pay the bills. I worked 4 to midnight from home. And then when my mom passed, I was really, really lost. That job did a number on me, but it was a blessing because I had FMLA. But I had never worked an hourly job ever in my life. So my self-esteem was a little bit low. I will never regret being a caregiver and giving up um, what I was doing. I had a practice and I was teaching at the college. And so one of my friends knew that I was looking. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go back into higher ed, but she asked me to teach. And the job was like literacy, whatever, supposedly remote. And then I noticed that there weren't any students. And I asked, I'm like, well, if there aren't any students, I go, how am I going to get paid? It was like a $20 an hour job. And she's like, oh, well, you'll get paid for the day. It's $20 for the day. I was shocked and insulted. And I felt so low because I'm like, you know my background. You know what I'm capable of. Why would you even give me a job that would be $20 a day? And so I am going to be honest. I prayed and I said, God, I don't know what you have in store for me, but please send me a sign. I thought it would be virtually impossible to get back into being a professor, adjunct. I knew that the school had gone through some changes. I would say less than a week later, I get a text message from someone different who's like, hey, are you interested in maybe adjunct? And I was floored. I couldn't believe it, but I don't know why I couldn't believe it. He answered my prayers. And not only was I able to be an adjunct, I was a temporary professor, like within a few weeks. And I think for me, when you lose your career by choice, I didn't lose it. I was actually forced. I'm like, I can't continue to do this. I was forced to reinvent myself. But for me, reinvention was going back into the field that I had left really for 4 years. We took care of my mom for 4 years. So for me, that was a catalyst. So for me, reinventing was somewhat forced and pushed. I felt like I can't do this anymore. I need to get out of my comfort zone, go back. So I was going to ask you guys, when do you know it's time to reinvent yourself? That $20 a day was like, oh no, this is not what God has for you. You know, for real. God has more for me than a $20 a day job, right? So,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, like I said, I had developed a plan. So when I was probably 15 years old, between 15 and 17, I had decided that I was going to be married. We were going to have 2 kids. We're going to have the house, um, the white picket fence. I had a subscription to Bride magazine. I had a subscription to Better Homes and Gardens. I mean, I was at a very early age deciding that I wanted to be somebody's wife, mother, career, whatever. And, like I said, I had a divorce, and to some degree, that reality, I kind of felt like that reality wasn't going to happen for me, but I still wanted that to be my reality. And so I had to think about, who did I have to be to do the things that I needed to do in order to have the things that I wanted to have?
Mm.
So, I had to change my perspective on some things. I had to learn and grow on some things, because I wasn't doing any of the things that I needed to do in order for me to have those things. I wasn't dating. I wasn't doing anything. I had already, by the time I got divorced, I had already had, my children. So, um, that didn't happen for me. But the reality is, when I decided to reinvent myself, what that came to as well is creating a new story for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, maybe I didn't get the story that I wanted, the house with the white picket fence, but now I have a new story. I have an opportunity to create a new story and start from there.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think when you know that it's time, there like you can look at it from a career perspective, like when you have no joy in something that used to bring you a lot of joy, or you are just burned out on your job, no matter how exciting it is, no matter if it's something, that you love to do, but you just are burned out. And then, on a personal side, I feel like when you are mentally depressed and you have all these mental issues going on, it could be the environment that you're in. So that's a time where you need to reinvent yourself, you know. And I wanted to say right now I'm reinventing myself, even though I talked about something that happened in the past. But Elle and I went to this retreat, and at least they one of the assignments was to look ourselves in the mirror. And I was like, I don't want to do that. Look myself in the mirror. I
Yep.
mean, it was
It's harder
so
than you think.
it really is. It really and to say something beautiful about yourself when you look in the mirror. But would you say, Colio?
I said not only look at yourself in the mirror, but we had to take off the mask that we've been wearing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's another thing I talked about professionally, but even personally, if I say there are certain things that I want out of life, then I had to look at myself, look inward, and look at the choices that I'm making, the people that I'm choosing to be in my life. And I had to reinvent, okay, this define, okay, if I say I want this kind of friend, then this is what a friend needs to be. And if that's not what I have, then I don't need that. And the same thing with myself. Am I being that type of person? So what is it about me that is attracting this type of relationship? So that's another time when you need to reinvent yourself. If you're doing what Nana used to say, our mom and Nana used to say, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again and think you're getting different results, that's a
Yep,
definition of
definition.
insanity.
Yep,
So yes.
insanity.
So also, if you're not getting the results and you see that the patterns that you're doing, that's when you know that you need to reinvent yourself, right?
Right.
So I think at least it's going to talk about it, but that leads to like, what does that entail? Like, what is reinvention? What does that mean?
Yeah. But before we do that, I think we wanted to talk about reinventing versus self mastery.
Right,
So we can talk
right.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
the point.
Oh,
yeah,
Because I think it involves that.
yeah.
okay.
So
This is
I
where I had to
think
take my
I think when we think about reinventing versus self mastery, because self mastery is something that people are talking about a lot these days. Reinventing yourself is really creating a new story for yourself, creating a new reality. And self mastery, in my opinion, is developing the discipline or mastering, is that right, mastering
mastery.
um, some element of you that creates a barrier for you not to be able to achieve what you're trying to achieve. So for instance, like Ellen mentioned, if you want to have a different kind of circle or tribe, you have to look at yourself and say, okay, what do I need to do in order to attract that type of person? And if you are loud and obnoxious, then guess what? You're probably not going to attract that kind of person. So then you have to master, okay, I need to, because this is even something that I said I wanted to do. I need to be able to lower my tone. Even when I get excited and I'm talking passionately, I have to speak a little more, not to be all TikTokish, but I have to speak a little more demure in order for me to attract the kind of relationships that I'm looking for. Because if I'm looking for, let's say, for instance, people who are wealthy or whatever. There's just certain kinds of characteristics that are attractive to them that may not be attractive to, somebody else that I'm currently hanging out with. So to me, self mastery is like, what are those things that I have to do and what kind of discipline do I have to have in order for me to be able to go through the reinvention? So reinvention is the umbrella, and then under that, you have your mastery. What am I mastering in order to do that?
Mhm.
I like how you said the umbrella. I think another thing in order to have self mastery is you have to be honest with yourself. That's one of the things that somebody told me, that you need to be more honest with yourself. So that in order to master or do self mastery, what are your flaws? What is it about you that is making you not achieve that particular goal? So it's not easy and it's difficult, but having self reflection and introspection is another thing we need to look at.
Yeah. And we kind of said this, the whole looking in the mirror thing is, you know, I think Ellen, you said it, taking off the mask and being honest with yourself. Like we're saying this, but people are, people might think, well, I look at myself every day in the mirror. And it's like, but are you seeing yourself?
Mm,
You see your physical features, you see if there's, something different about your face, but are you able to look into your eyes and actually see who you are? And are you honest enough with yourself to say, you know what, I like where I am, or I don't like where I am?
so as we talk about self mastery, we want to talk about some of the myths that people have about reinventing yourself. And I think the first one that people say all the time, or I hear, is that age. They feel like if you reach a certain age that you cannot reinvent yourself. And that simply isn't true, because I heard some life coach was telling his story that he found his passion at 60, and he said, I plan to live to be 90. So you think because I'm 60 I shouldn't be happy and live my life? That is true, you know.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I like that because um, I was sharing with someone that um, in Proverbs it says that acknowledge God in all your ways and he will direct your paths. But paths is plural, meaning there are multiple things that you would experience. And I feel like right now at 51, I'm just getting to a place where I understand me. And so some of the things that I thought or was experiencing in my 20s and my 30s and my 40s were necessary for me to be able to be who I am right now.
Hmm.
So I wouldn't have been able to achieve those things, if it weren't for my age or if it weren't for my experience. So I definitely agree that you can do it at any age, and you can do a Google search and see how many people um, fell into their purpose in their 60s. So, age is definitely not an issue. I know another one is money. People always say they don't have the money. But realistically, and we've talked about this, when we were talking about our physical wellness, be creative, find something that you can do. You don't have to you don't have to get a whole new wardrobe and get your hair done and get all the makeup, and you don't and move to another city. You don't have to do it all at once. You just have to have a plan, and have a direction that you want to go, and have the discipline to be able to do it as well.
And I think that's a really good point. I think some of the myths that we have is that reinvention is physical only. Like everybody talks about, oh, when you break up with somebody, sometimes the best thing to do is cut all your hair off. You'll feel better. Even though I think that is true. I think everybody should shave their head at least once in their life. Peter doesn't believe in that, but I think you should. Or
No.
that it is I'm team shave your head. Or that it is just the outward appearances. I think reinventing yourself really is hard work, and it really has to do with your mind and thinking. So somebody, oh, I got a new job. I'm like she said, got a new job. I make more money now, so I can get these clothes. I'm a new person. I got this new car. I'm in this new neighborhood. But really, I think reinvention really starts with reinventing your mind and how you think about everything. How you deal with grief, um, because Grief isn't something that happens when that person dies. It's something that happens ongoing, right? So reinvention is how are you going to approach grief? You know, how are you going to approach it knowing that it's an everyday thing? Some days are better than others. It's a mind thing, right? So I think that's a myth that is physical. I think it's more mental work.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And you know what else? Another myth that I probably a lot of people probably don't talk about, but a lot of people think that reinventing yourself is a solo journey, meaning that you
Mhm.
do everything by yourself. That's not really true. You can need a support group or a group of friends that kind of have the same ideas that you have, in order to get to where you need to go. So that's a myth.
I love that. That's true, Nikita. I think you and I, we don't keep plugging ourselves, but we have we're in our health journey. Like this girl said, she's in her fitness era. We're in our fitness era, and I'm learning that we just can't. I can't do it by myself. I have her to help me, but we're building a village of people who are not perfect. They're not where they want to be, but we all have that same goal to be healthier as we get older. Nobody wants to age and get sick. We want to live our best lives. So having a community, and she's talking about the retreat that we went to, a community of other people who are like-minded. I did not realize how important
Me
the
either.
community is
Me either.
into reinventing yourself for the positive, because
Yeah.
it's easy to get bogged down in the negative, day-to-day of all that we have, the stress. But when you have that community to help
Hmm.
you deal with the stress and the hurt and the difficulties and the failures, it makes getting to that goal a lot easier,
Hmm.
doable.
Yeah, I think I heard a African proverb. I mean, people always say it's an African proverb, but it's just a saying that if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go with someone else.
Hmm.
And especially like what we're seeing in social media, it seems like a lot of people are pushing away from relationships and things like that, and I'm just finding my peace alone. But it is important for you to have a strong group of people who are going to support you, because if you got to think about it, sometimes your reinvention means that you can't take people along with you. And so you're going to have to replace them with people who are going in the same direction with you. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I
So what
think
do you
that's important.
I agree with that. So what do you guys think, like Nikita, what do you think are some of the challenges, that's emotional or psychological challenges that come with trying to reinvent yourself?
Well, we touched a little bit on it when we said economics. I mean, I think a lot of people just feel like, even when it comes to learning a new skill, they say, oh, I don't have any money to learn a new skill. But there's so many free resources out there. You can learn anything. If you're not someone that knows how to use Excel, you can learn it
Yeah.
and it's free. And even edX, I always talk about, I give that to my clients. If you want to learn something, it's free. You either pay a little more to get that certificate, but I think that's the first one that people will say economic.
Yeah. Um, I think as far as emotional and psychological, I think we also touched on this. Like, you have to be honest. You have to be honest with where you are currently and where you want to be, um, and what it takes to get there. Um, because if you yourself personally are not doing what you need to do, then you're going to have to say, hey, I need to be disciplined enough, and you have to stand 10 toes down. And if you're saying, I don't want to drink anymore, your friends are like, let's go to the club, and you're not strong enough to not take a shot or whatever, you're going to have to make some hard decisions. And
Mhm.
sometimes people are not strong enough to do those things. They don't have the discipline to actually master that part of them. So it can be difficult, and you're going to come against all kinds of distraction, all kinds.
I agree. I think also challenge is it can be overwhelming and it can be like a daunting challenge to reinvent. Oh, I got to do this. I got a new job. I got to get a new hairstyle. I got to do. So I think that you have to break it down into pieces. I actually did a
Mm-hmm.
little research for this one, and I found a website that talks about reinventing, and Akito put the link up. But how to reinvent yourself? I think it was for how to reinvent yourself at 50. So for those of us Gen Xers, but I think it applies to anyone. Well, maybe not the first one. So some of the steps. The first step was coming to terms with pro aging, right? The opposite of aging is not aging at all. So if we're blessed, I don't use lucky, if we're blessed enough to get older, it's time to embrace that. It's a blessing to get older, right? So one of the things is to come to terms with aging, pro aging. Number two, letting go of toxic elements. I think we talked about that. It could be your circle. It could be what you listen to, what you watch. I'm learning it's very much so what you allow in your life. So be very, very cognizant of the toxic things that may keep you or hinder you from achieving the goal. And I think we said this earlier. You have to be honest with yourself. Third step is take stock of you. Okay. So let's say you want to run. I know somebody that wants to run a marathon. That's a goal. They want to be a marathon runner. Take stock of where you are right now. Right. I think I'm trying to do the 5K. I'm going to walk it. And I had to take stock of, I'm not at the 15. They want me to work a 15-minute mile. I'm like, I'm close to it. Right. So take stock of who you are, realize where you are and where you need to go. Okay. And what steps you need to get there, which is the next step. Part 4, make a plan. So part of making a plan, and this is a sub part of that, you got to eliminate the negative. Like I said, part of reinventing yourself is mental, right? So I am someone who's working on negative self-talk. I don't want to do that anymore. So I have to, be positive in your thinking about your ability to reach that goal. Another thing you need to do in this journey is have a well-being and self-care plan, right? So in order for you to achieve these, you have to be mentally ready. So if you have some issues that are keeping you, some things that keep coming up, therapy, right? If sleep stress is an issue, sleep therapy should be a priority. So you have to have enough rest. So your well-being, both physically and mentally, needs to be a part of that plan. I have a few more. Goals and a purpose, right? So why do you want to run a marathon? Why? And what's the purpose? Is it to prove something to yourself? So be clear about what you're doing and why you're doing it. One of the things our trainer made us do at the beginning of the year, we had to write down a list of goals, and we had to be because they were general. He goes, no, it's too general. It has to be specific. You need to be very, very clear and specific into what it is that you want and your purpose. What's your why? I think somebody said that. What is your why? That needs to be clear. Then you have to have joy and peace. It's easier said than done. I think that you create your joy. In the world that we live in, it's so easy to get bogged down with the negative, all that's going on, especially in this era and this time that we're living in. So you got to find your joy and your peace, right? And finally, it was a long list. There'll be a link there if you forget what I say. Starting new habits. If you want to be this new person, this new thing, you have to have new habits. It'll be 2 years in December. I couldn't walk half a block. I could not walk a half a block without getting winded. I did not like walking past a mirror or a window where I could see a silhouette. So I created a new habit. I started going to a trainer. I never thought I would, right? So I started making a habit, just little habits. I want to go twice a week, right? That's all I did. That's it. That's all I did. So start a habit, start creating habits that are going to get you to where you're going. I think one of the things I heard, and I'm almost done, is what are you doing right now? What are your habits that you're doing right now going to get you to that new goal? Ladies, I'm done.
No, those are some good points, though. They're very good
Yeah,
points.
definitely. Because you do have to have a plan. I will add to that, how you wake up in the morning um, determines a lot about the rest of your day. And if the first thing you do, this is something that I'm working on right now for myself. If the first thing you do is grab your phone and start trying to engage with the world, you're not giving yourself an opportunity to just have a moment of silence and peace in your conscious mind.
Mhm.
You've been sleeping in your subconscious mind and you've had that rest. But you also have to have that moment of quiet and silence in your conscious mind. So, don't be so quick to wake up when you wake up in the morning to grab your phone,
Mhm.
start scrolling through Facebook, what's going on in the news. Just allow yourself to be with yourself. And if you believe in a higher power, if you believe in God, give yourself a moment to be with God
Mhm.
and ask for direction for your day. And even if you don't, just say, hey, I want to be successful for today. How can I be successful for the day? And allow yourself to minister to yourself, to talk to yourself, to say, this is what you need to do. And that makes a world of difference. It makes you feel like you can conquer the world because you started on a good platform in the morning.
Yeah,
So
I agree with that because I know they say the most successful people attack their morning. So in the morning, for me, I like to spend just 5 minutes, making my bed and then praying for the day, and that God gives me the strength to get through my work day.
yeah. Yeah, and it doesn't have to be a long time and it doesn't have to be like a big display. It's just, have some peace and quiet in the morning. Start with,
Mhm.
because if you start with drama, you're gonna have a drama-filled day.
Mhm. Mhm. I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I think we're gonna go into resources. Some of the things, I don't have a copy of the book, but one of the first things that I did when I said that I wanted something different out of life beginning of this year, I started reading a book called What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. And
Mm.
it's about negative self-talk, and it teaches you, because it's a lot of us have to learn that is not something that we don't learn, how to talk positively about ourselves and to encourage ourselves. And I was watching the Olympics, and to me this was like one of the most exciting games. But I noticed the athletes, if you when they have the camera on them right before, they're talking to themselves, they are pumping themselves up, they are saying, you got this, you can do this, this is not, you got this is yours, right? They don't say it's not hard, they don't say that, but they do say, you got this, you want. So when you start doing that, it really does change it can change the trajectory of your life, just
Mhm.
having positive self-talk.
Mhm.
I'm gonna go through all of mine. What else? I do. There is this website or an app. It's free. That my therapist actually recommended, called Insight Reader, and it has a lot of apps on meditation and breath work. Like we said, you have to have joy and peace. And I think meditating and have a time where you, or even if you pray too, whatever brings you peace, um, it has little apps for that as well. I'm done.
Okay. I just have two. One is called a 5 second rule. I don't know if you all have ever heard of that, but that book changed my life. It is by Mel Robbins. And what she does, this book kind of breaks down how to get rid of negative and bad habits. Because she said how most people, when they hear the alarm in the morning, they'll hit that snooze button, they'll let it go. And she's like, no, you want to get up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, get up, and just start. And she makes that the whole premise of the book is don't procrastinate. Learn how to do everything you say you're going to do and put it in a time slot for your day. So that's the first one. The second one is, I am a Christian. And this book is called Discovering God's Vision for Your Life. I love this book. And I'll put that link.
Oh,
Take a
okay.
picture of it. But
Okay.
yeah. But this book it has a test in here that you can take, because some people don't even know what they're passionate about yet. So here they can take this test, and it will tell you and give you different steps on how to find out what your passion is. So this book will change your life.
Yeah. So I am a huge, huge, huge proponent of journaling. Um, because it gives you an opportunity to talk to yourself, and to record your thoughts. So I have a journal. I write in it every day. I write in it multiple times a day, and I just download the things that I am stressed about. I download the things that I'm thinking about, what I want to accomplish, what I want to accomplish for the day, what's important for me. And if I have a problem, and I need to be a little bit vulnerable, and maybe I don't feel comfortable talking to someone else about it, I use my journal for that. The other thing is, I always talk about the Four Agreements. That's like one of my favorite books. And as Ellen mentioned, positive talk, one of the Four Agreements is to be impeccable with your words. And I think a lot of times people always talk about, how do you speak to others and how do you influence others with your words? But more importantly, how are you influencing yourself? So, that positive self talk, changing the way that you communicate with yourself. When I was growing up, people were like, if you talk to yourself, you're crazy. But
I thought if you talk to yourself and you answer yourself, you're crazy.
I do,
Right.
I do both. So I don't know what that says about me, but because I'm probably the most rational person I know, but so but how you talk to yourself is important. And then, the other thing in the Four Agreements is don't take anything personal. Just like you are wanting to reinvent yourself, or you are dealing with things, there are other people who are dealing with things all around you. And so, you know don't take anything personal, don't carry other people's baggage. So I would really, say the Four Agreements and journaling is big for me. All right. So I know we talked about what led us to reinvent. Have we had any situations where we've reinvented and it was successful? It manifested into something else?
I reinvented myself, like as far as my wellness and my fitness. Lost a nice amount of weight, and that's because we have a personal trainer. I'm eating right, and I work out 3 or 4 days a week, and I'm walking like my 10,000 step. So that has been very successful. Hmm.
All right, for me, I would say, and I downplay kind of what's happened to me over the past 2 years, but I became a realtor after wanting to be a realtor for 25 years. I finally did it. I purchased a candle business, and even though I don't do a whole lot with my candle business, I purchased a candle business, and I was able to see it grow from starting to make soap back in 2015, and now I do soap and candles. So yeah, I just that's been awesome for me.
Hmm.
Hey, congratulations.
Yes,
You deserve your
congratulations.
flowers. I mean, you've done
Yes.
a lot.
Thanks.
I would say, like Nikita, we have a twins transforming where you guys can see our Instagram, but definitely I can walk more than a block. I can walk an hour without getting winded. And one of my goals is to do a 5K. And I never thought I'd be
Never.
that, because
Never.
really the goal was to go to a trainer, lose some weight, and be done. But I have reinvented myself where fitness and wellness is like a thing for me, and I never would have thought that. So that definitely to me is a success story, starting off with something small, a minor goal, and just changing those habits, and it's manifested into so many things. It's been amazing. I think we talked about how reinventing yourself can also lead to helping other people. I think we're all here for a purpose. We talk about our God-given purpose. I've gone from somebody from working a $20 a day job to well, not even that. When I was a caregiver and I did not like that job, I was unhappy every day, all day. And I have reinvented myself. I am somebody who loves waking up. I love what I do. I feel good and feel like I have a purpose driven life, and that I'm able to see young people achieve their goals and their dreams. And it is an amazing feeling. So to go from someone who was unhappy and not feeling like I have a purpose, praying, and then here I am 2 years later living, what I consider to be one of the best times in my life, despite the grief, that
Right. Right.
I am living in joy. And that to me is a success story.
Yeah, I want to really highlight what you said, because even when you were saying it, I was like, man, that is key. Um, you had a small desire, and you followed that very small desire, and it blossomed you into other areas that you thought you would never consider. And I think that is just so critical, because as we grow ourselves and as we blossom, other doors start opening up and other realizations start opening up for us to take that as an opportunity. And I think that's awesome, to grow as a person.
It is.
Anything else we want to share?
Mm-mm.
That's pretty much it. Check us out on our Facebook group, A World Between. Like us and share. Make some comments. Tell us what you think about the show or any show ideas. We'd love to hear from you.
Yep. Thanks
All
for
right.
joining us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Culture and community. A world divided, but there's positive unity. Entertainment trends, how the system shakes. From the hood struggles to the moves we make. True stories, the real vibes, no fakes.